It's July, and that means it's trade season. And the Yankees got started early, looking to really revamp their roster. I just heard about Tim Locastro, who they picked up from the Arizona Diamondbacks. Let's take a quick look at his stats and see what we'll be getting. I kid Tim Locastro. You know that tough New York fan base that they told you about, though, Tim? Nice to meet you. So Hal Steinbrenner gave his annual press conference where he very animatedly and very sternly says precisely not dick.
The majority of the responsibility, whether it's the responsibility of inconsistent offense or bad base running, etc., that responsibility lies with the players. They're the ones on the field, right? They're a group of very talented professional athletes that are playing this game at the highest level in the world. They need to fix this problem. They need to fix the problem because everyone, including our fan base, rightfully so, has had enough, quite frankly.
Basically, it boils down to he's blaming the players for the failure. He says that Brian Cashman, Marcus Thames, Aaron Boone, they're all doing a bang-up job, just doing a great job. I'll tell you what, this guy should carry around a plant to make up for all the air he wastes when he's talking. He makes the argument that George Steinbrenner making managerial or front office changes during the season didn't always work out. But that's kind of an odd argument because it has worked out for other teams. Jack McKeon in 2003 with the Marlins comes to mind. Took over for a bad Marlins team early in the season, took him to the World Series title. So, I don't think you could say it doesn't work. So the fans say, okay, well, you're not going to fire Boone, you're not going to fire Cashman. At least do something. Do something to show us you care. And about an hour later, the Yankees acquire Tim Locastro, who somehow is a worse hitter than Tyler Wade. Now, Tim Locastro may very well step in and have a couple of good games, but he doesn't really change the makeup of this roster at all. He's right-handed. He does have some speed. He can play center field, but he's not going to help you much offensively, and this team's offense has been a big problem. Now complemented by the fact that Aroldis Chapman can't get anybody out without gobs of guck all over his hands. This is a bad situation that the Yankees have gotten themselves into. He does say that they're absolutely willing to go over the luxury tax threshold if they need to. Well, that's great news, Hal. That would have been valuable when this team started off 5-11 and it became clear to everyone on earth and everybody who watches baseball that this team was constructed in a way too right-handed manner and was way too slow. I appreciate that they're trying to do a little bit of something by getting a little bit more speed with Locastro, but it's going to take more than Tim Locastro to turn this team into a contender. I remember how big a deal it was back in 1997 when the Yankees and the Mets played each other for the first time in interleague play after it was introduced. And then the 2000 World Series was obviously awesome. I get excited for these Yankees-Mets matchups every single year. It's kind of like that Duke-UNC thing where no matter how either team is playing at the time, it's always a pretty good fight. The only guy I'm really scared of is Jacob deGrom. But I think that both teams are going to rise to the occasion, and this is going to be a really good series. There's going to be a lot of emotion. The fans are going to be going at it in the stands. I can't wait. Okay, so I have two interviews for you today. The first is Max Goodman. He writes for Sports Illustrated. He covers the Yankees. He always posts these spring training clips that go viral. I've used a few of them on this channel. And my second interview is with Pete Simonetti of Simonetti Source. You know him. He's a vibrant YouTube personality, social media personality. And I thought it would be fun to have a legit rant on this show. You guys have seen me rant, but I can't rant like this guy can rant. So give it up for Max and then Pete coming on. Please welcome Max Goodman from Sports Illustrated.
I like coming on podcasts and shows and doing that kind of thing.
Well, you have an open invitation anytime you want to come on NYY Recaps. I mean, we got a pretty big audience here, so get used to people seeing you all the time. Since you are a good writer, I wanted you to help me figure something out because this has been stressing me out. Why is there a D in fridge but not in refrigerator? I just can't get that one. I just can't figure it out, man.
I have no idea.
That's weird.
Yeah.
So what'd you think of Hal Steinbrenner's talk today, his little chat?
Yeah, those are always exciting. 25 minutes long. You get to hear a lot of different types of questions, and from what I heard, because I'm relatively new on the beat.
Yeah.
But from what I've heard from other reporters, he's not always talking mid-season like he was today. So I think we learned a lot about where he's at, and just in terms of how there's still some positive and optimism about the roster that he and Cashman have compiled over the last few years, and how he still thinks that they're a championship caliber team, but he's aggravated, frustrated, mad, angry. I think he used all four of those words. He's not his dad, but also I'm only 24. So his dad was doing a lot of stuff before I was really realizing what baseball and sports journalism was, and it wasn't necessarily my passion yet at that point.
I did watch his dad growing up all through the 90s, and I can tell you he sounds a lot like his dad, but he says none of the same things that his dad says. It's very interesting. He did have a pretty good point that his father would make a lot of these mid-season moves and they wouldn't necessarily work out, but we've seen it happen before. Jack McKeon in 2003 with the Marlins. Sometimes just a new voice to lead the room can really help out. What do you see in terms of leadership on this Yankees team? Who are the leaders of the team?
Well, it's challenging because we're not in the clubhouse. And I think that especially with this season, as much as I'd love to be in there and grow as a reporter, because I've only been able to do that with this team for 2 weeks in spring training last year in 2020. I think we would learn a lot about where this team was at, even if we're just flies on the wall after a night like Wednesday night, early Thursday morning, just kind of being around the players and getting a sense of the atmosphere after a loss like that and the highs and lows that this team has had. Based on what certain players have been talking about and what we've heard, it seems like the usual suspects, the Judge, Gardner, who's been around for forever and has that winning experience, Garrett Cole, Zach Britton, both those guys are, union guys and they have their, involvement with the league, I'm saying, and they've been around for forever too. I think Voit is an outspoken leader after how much that he's grown on the field in the last couple of years since he came over from St. Louis. I think they do have the leaders, but I also kind of question the chemistry overall and just how much fun this team is having and how much they're gelling. You think back a couple of years ago when the team was doing the thumbs down thing and they had those pieces that maybe they weren't the best players, but that team was really vibing together. And sometimes that's what it takes, in sports. It's weird, right? That a team like the Washington Nationals can win a World Series just sneaking through with the wild card. Obviously they have incredible pitchers that year and they got some guys that got hot on offense, but that team was also just, they found their mojo. And if you get hot at the right time, then you can make some noise. But I just don't know if that team has that this year.
Yeah, I was suggesting yesterday, now might be a good time to relax sort of the facial hair policy. Just kind of say, let your hair loose. Let's have a contest. Who can grow the biggest beard by the end of the summer? And just that kind of little thing to get your mind off of baseball, because we know these guys are good baseball players. It's clearly mental. Yogi used to say 90% of the game is half mental, right? Well, now you're coming out of this pandemic. You have all this pressure to win. Guys are aging. You're hearing all these things about the closing window. Maybe it's just a little bit too much stress and they could use something to kind of lighten things up.
Well, I think that's something that's come up with, Marcus Timms talking about the offense and the underperforming that we've seen basically across this entire roster. When things aren't going well, even the best players are going to start to press. It's a natural thing. If I'm not doing well with my job, I'm going to feel more pressure to write better articles and get quicker with my gamer at the end of a game. And that it takes a very strong, it takes mental fortitude to be able to overcome those kind of things. And we're seeing certain players that are now having pretty quality years, like Gary Sanchez. And I think DJ LeMahieu has kind of broken out of that average stretch where now he's starting to get back to the DJ LeMahieu we know from the last couple of years. Judge has been incredibly consistent, but other than Judge, no one has really been consistent this entire year. So it takes a specific individual to get through those hard times. And if you're not mentally in it to win it, then it gets even tougher beyond just how challenging baseball is in general, right? It's the hardest thing is to hit the round ball with a baseball bat, like, especially when people are throwing at 100 miles an hour and it's moving.
So a couple of years ago, Miguel Andujar kind of had this moniker of great hitter, bad third baseman. He gets injured. He misses a while. Last year, kind of a subpar performance. This year, we've seen him at times up and down, now moved to left. What's the, 3-sentence FBI profile on Miguel Andujar these days?
I think he's got the potential to be an elite hitter on offense. And the helicopter follow through, he's got his thing. And we saw what he did in 2018, a pretty historic rookie year with the extra base hits, and he was hitting for average, had the power as well. But it kind of feels like, even with all the improvements that he's made in the outfield, that he's still playing out of position, or maybe he doesn't even really have a position. Like, there are a lot of guys on the Yankees that, and I realize I've gone over 3 sentences at this point.
No, take your time.
Yeah. I think a lot of guys are kind of just not excellent defenders, and that's not to say that they're not competent and capable, but the way that this team has been built, it's not the flashiest Gold Glove caliber defenders across the roster. I mean, LeMahieu's won a couple Gold Gloves. Judge is really solid and right. But obviously we could talk for hours about Gleyber Torres and if he's a shortstop or not. Urshela's obviously amazing at third, but he's kind of been a revelation too. We didn't necessarily expect that in general. And you know what you're getting with Gardner, but Hicks is missed out there, and his arm isn't the same since Tommy John. So without going through the entire roster, it's like even Clint Frazier, like he's made a lot of improvements too, but there are sometimes balls that, he's diving and making a catch, but I feel like a really solid outfielder gets to that without needing to dive. Everything is a case-by-case scenario.
So the other day, Brian Cashman said that he didn't want to make a move by bringing somebody up that he didn't feel would make a difference. Do you think that sends a bad message to the minor leaguers that are working their tail off that, hey, you're not going to make a difference up here?
Yeah, I was talking to a couple people about that. And it was in reference to Hoy Jun Park and Trey Ambergi. Those were the two guys that Cashman brought up. They're hitting almost 400. Last time I checked, Park is leading AAA, all of AAA in OPS. It does kind of send a weird message, like these guys are putting up elite numbers at the level that they're at right now, while several people on your big league roster are far below average at this level. Just, to a non-baseball fan, if you explain that to them, they'd be like, so why aren't you calling the AAA players up to fill in for the ones that aren't performing in the big leagues? Obviously, there are roster implications too, and the 40-man, and I think Park has something to do with like his Korean citizenship and like the military or something. I saw that on Twitter. I gotta read into that more. Like if he gets put on the big league roster and it affects his employment status or something like that. But it does say, like, what else are they supposed to do? Like if they're playing this well, and obviously AAA is not the same pitching that you're seeing in the majors, but why not give them a shot? And we saw that with Chris Gittens getting a shot, and he obviously started very, very slow, but he's got the kind of swing that would play in the big leagues, and he can hit it just as hard as Judge and Stanton, right? So when your offense is struggling as much as it is New York, so you got to have the big names up there, and you're paying for those players. So maybe this would be different if we were in, Pittsburgh or Kansas City, but the kids are playing well. Like, why not just give them a go if you can make it work with the roster construction?
I'm going to say 2 words, and I want you to just kind of give me your thoughts from the bottom of your heart. John Sterling.
Oh man, John is incredible. I know a lot of people don't necessarily love the antics, I guess you could say, but I grew up in Manhattan. I was a Yankees fan as a kid, and I would watch games on Yes with my dad, but we would mute the TV sometimes. No, I love Michael Kay and what those guys do as well. No offense to them, but my dad just gets such a kick out of the theatrics of it all and how entertaining it is sometimes, and how he'll say silly things, and he's getting up there in his age too. So that's always funny. I haven't gotten a chance to meet him and introduce myself yet because he's not always mingling in the press box section. He's usually in the booth. But shout out to Susan Wallman too. I mean, I had a friend of mine as a kid growing up, and his mom is good friends with Susan. So when I was like 10 years old, I got to go in the booth and meet those two.
Is there anything of note worth talking about with the attendance? It seems as if the Yankees maybe aren't drawing as much as some other ball clubs. You go to Boston and it's packed to the gills. They had 52,000 in LA, but I still see a lot of blue at Yankee Stadium. Thoughts on that?
Well, that was the final question today with Hal. Someone asked him if that's a concern of his, like what he thinks the reasoning is. He mentioned the pandemic and a lot of people still figuring out if they want to be in that environment, which I think is fair. It depends on the person and if they're willing to be around 40,000 people. I think that the new high this season was Wednesday night when Shohei was pitching. They got to see him for 2 outs, which was exciting. But it was 30K, I believe, off the top of my head. And usually it's around like 25,000, which is not what you're used to hearing when you're going to the Bronx to see a Yankee game. And maybe part of that is the product on the field. Although I think that this fan base is a loyal one and would be going in full force regardless of how they're doing, because they're still winning more games than they're not. They're over 500. But yeah, what Hal said that stuck with me is also the fact that a lot of tickets right now were pre-sold from before things opened up. So that like logistical aspect of things may be holding them back in general from having a complete sellout. But he did mention that the next homestand, like midway through July, that then you're going to start to see more fans. I don't know if we're going to see complete sellouts, but there are sections around the ballpark that I'll see from the press box that are completely packed to the gills with no empty seats. So that's encouraging.
Final question before I let you go. Let's say you had one at bat in Yankee Stadium, World Series. What walk-up song do you use?
Oh man. So I played club baseball in college. I went to Northwestern, and I was a big walk-up guy. Like I would think through this so much in the fall, like leading up to a season, like trying to make a list of what I would do. For some reason, one of my favorite songs is Rapper's Delight. You know, the 14-minute, like really old rap song, one of the first.
Really old, yeah.
Yeah. I did a project on it in college. I was in a music class and I had to write a paper about like the history of rap music. And that was like a big part of it. So I think just off the top of my head, I would do that, but just like the instrumental, like I just love the beat that goes through that entire song. It's like 14 minutes, like I said. Side note, I really want to memorize the whole thing. I think I'm at like 5 minutes, which is impressive in its own way. That's like what a basic song would be, right? So
it's pretty good.
I've got some work to do, but I do like keeping track, you know, like what the guys on the Yankees use. Whenever I'm on the road, I'll keep tabs on what those home players are using. I just get a kick out of music in general. I mean, my mom is a singer here in New York City too.
Oh, really?
So music is a part of my childhood and my family too.
Do you ever hear a song that one of the players comes up to and like download it on your phone?
I try to do I don't have Shazam, the app, but there's a thing where if you hold down and you get Siri, like I don't think any other reporter has noticed me doing this, but I'll go like, what song is this? Like really quickly. And then it starts listening. Cause it's only like a 5-second snippet.
Yeah.
But it's entertaining. Like I think LeMahieu's is a Gunna song, which is like interesting. Gardy has I think it's in Spanish. I haven't figured out which one it is. I'm meaning to like ask him or somebody about it. Cause one time on a Zoom call after a win, they were blasting that song in the clubhouse behind whoever was talking. So clearly that has some sort of part of the chemistry, which we talked about earlier. But yeah, and then sometimes players will change it too. And that's keeping track of who's playing well. And, they switched up their walk-up song and they're very superstitious, which I used to do in college too. So those are the fun wrinkles of being at the ballpark every day, man. It's the part of the job where it's like, wow, like I get to notice all these little things because I'm here every day, which even the fans that are at the stadium every day for just the 9 innings, they might not necessarily know because I'm there a couple hours before and a couple hours after too. So I'm really lucky.
I always figured Gardner for a James Taylor walk-up music kind of guy, and by the way, James Taylor, you've seen Fire and Rain. Congrats on having eyes, buddy. Thanks, Max Goodman. Sports Illustrated, I wish you a long and successful career. You're welcome to come back on NYY Recaps anytime you want. Can't wait to read whatever books you come out with. This seems to be a thing the Yankees beat writers do, is write books. So I'm looking forward to the first one on the comeback of the century, the 2021 Yankees. Appreciate it, Max.
Thanks for having me. Seriously, I appreciate it. And I'd love to come back someday. We'll be in touch.
All right, guys. So that was Max Goodman, Sports Illustrated. I'll be back in just a minute with Pete Simonetti of Simonetti Source and Designated Spitters, the new podcast. It was a really fun interview. He can really talk. This guy knows his stuff too. So let me first give a shout out to my sponsor, Manscaped, and then I'll be back with an interview with Simonetti. Gentlemen, flip-flop season is upon us, and you're out here with these post-pandemic toenails. Come on. Don't worry, our friends at Manscaped have you covered. They just launched their 4th-generation performance package and their Shears 2.0 nail grooming kit. Join the Manscaped movement by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with the code NYY Recaps. The Performance Package 4.0 includes the new Lawnmower 4.0. This trimmer will change the way you approach your grooming routine. Also, if the power grid goes out in Texas again, you can use your Lawnmower 4.0 to illuminate the way with this LED spotlight. Forgot to mention this trimmer is waterproof, so you can trim in the shower and not worry about your cleanup on aisle D. Once again, visit manscaped.com and enter the code NYY Recaps at checkout. That's all one word, to get 20% off and free shipping. Please welcome Pete Simonetti, Designated Spitters. Pete Simonetti, Simonetti Source, Designated Spitters.
Yes.
I came across that. It's excellent. So lately people have been coming to my channel and they've been asking for rants. I guess a couple of my rants have been popular, but I'm not the rant guy. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because I wanted to familiarize my audience with who I go for my rants. This guy is the rant master. So I got to ask you, just what's on your mind right now?
Oh man, the rant master. I like it. At the end of the day, I'm going to say what Francis says, who's my co-host on Designated Spitters. A fan is short for fanatic. We're fanatics. We love the Yankees. And when we see what we're seeing so far and the responses that we've heard from leadership, it leads me to just air it out. I have nothing else to do but to air it out. I enjoy it. It actually helps me mentally, I feel like, really, because it's and I think it's also the heart of a lot of fans.
It's the heart of every man.
They feel the same way. This year so far, there's no other way to put it, but it has been a major disappointment. I mean, I don't think there's any way around that. And then you hear Boone every single night. It's kind of more the same thing. We had good at-bats. Well, you lost 5-1. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. We had good at-bats. The guys look consistent today. And then, Stanton comes out and goes, no, we're not consistent. And it just looks like a train wreck right now. And I don't think Steinbrenner made it any better today. I think he made it worse.
Yeah, he didn't seem like he was really holding the staff accountable. I get that the players play the game, but who puts the players on the roster?
That's
Who
right.
develops the players in the minor leagues?
That's right.
You know, it's more
That's
than
right.
just the performance on the field is the end result of a billion different ingredients. And if you're not acknowledging that somewhere along the line, you might have the wrong ingredient, then I think you're just doing a disservice to your fans.
100%, 100%. And that's the only thing. It's funny because a lot of times when I make these videos every day now, it feels like I'm always saying I could almost just put it on repeat at this point. And I asked my team last night, we're all talking and we're saying, you know, what differences we would do, what we would make change. And everybody has the same idea of what's wrong with this lineup. And you're like, well, what is going on with them? Like, they see this, they have to. You know, Brian Cashman's a smart guy. He's one of the better GMs in baseball. Nobody's denying that. But there also comes a time where I personally feel like you wear out your welcome. I think he's done that. The roster construction, like you said, that's his baby. This is his baby. This is the team that, you know, Aaron Boone and coaches have to play every day. They have challenges, and I understand that, but to sit there and yes, the players do have some of the blame. There's no denying that. A lot of them have underperformed. A lot of the base running errors, you know, I know Michael Kay and Cone and a few other people said, well, that's, you know, your player development team. Yes, but you also have coaches on that staff right now that can sit them down. I have yet to see in the dugout, even a player pull somebody aside. You never see nothing like that on this team. And maybe that's us digging a little too much to find something, but it never, you don't get that feeling of this club that there's an actual leader present.
I agree with you. That's a really good point. You know, Judge is supposed to be that guy, but you never see Judge, who's an intimidating figure. You know, if he got in your face,
right,
anybody's going to listen to him.
You'll listen
but
to him.
You never see him pull somebody into the hallway and say, hey, look, you know, maybe don't run to third if the ball's hit right at you. You know what I mean?
Right.
Speaking of which, that brings me to my next question. I'm going to say two words to you, and I want to get your just unvarnished opinion. Clint Frazier.
Dump him. You know, well, you know, he's obviously a big topic of conversation because people want to talk about Frazier and how he struggled and whatnot. But it's funny because during my live the other night, somebody messaged me and goes, well, Pete, they don't want to send him down because, you know, it's his last option and that'll hurt his value. I said, what value? What value? What value is going to be hurt? You got a poor guy, Trey Ambergy, down there who, you know, posted a video with the song Locked Up in the background today because he's like, I'm locked up. They won't let me out. I have nowhere to go here. Like I'm stuck hitting 360 in AAA and I don't have a spot. They get Tim Locastro today, who's batting 170 something. And it's just more the same. At least he plays center field. That's nice to get a center fielder. But Frazier is, and this is the funny thing that we talked about a little last night too, is Frazier was benched. If you remember, he lost his starting spot like 3 games into the season. They automatically started playing Gardner over him. He's never been liked on this club. So we're not fooling anybody by being like, they're upset that Frazier's doing bad. I don't believe that for 1 second. I was thinking they were hoping that the COVID short season was a lot of what they would see from him going forward, but it's not. You know, he has a different batting stance every time he comes up. He's confused. He's lost right now. The best thing you could do for a guy like him is let him go to another organization, or 2, send him down. Let him retool. Let him figure something out.
Yeah. Oh, man, that's a great point. I mean, I would love to see him get his confidence back in AAA, but I can see now what the scouts saw that drafted him number 5 overall and how he made his way through the minor leagues. You see the guy make these unbelievable catches, right? And you think, wow, this guy's Superman out there. But then you go look at the stat data and you find out he got the worst jump you could possibly get.
Yeah.
And he basically played it into an amazing catch when a normal outfielder would be standing under it. And you see this legendary bat speed that leads to 15 pulled, chopped ground balls foul a night. And then he whiffs over a slider. His timing, you got to have great hand speed and great timing. And he's missing the timing aspect of it.
100%. He's totally off. And for me, like I said, I mean, here's the best question to ask yourself. If you're the Yankees or if you're a Yankee fan, do you even believe there's a future for him on this club? Because I don't.
No.
I think that's, I think that even last year when he played well, I said, I don't think there's a future here for him. And at the end of the day, that's what I guess upsets me so much and why these rants are so filled a fuel in me because I'm sitting there watching like, but Cashman comes out and says, these guys aren't difference makers. Well, one, you're crapping on your prospects. You just said Ambergy and Park are not difference makers. And then Florial, you said, wouldn't do well at this level. So if I'm trading for these guys now, I'm telling you, oh no, they're not difference makers. They're going to be throw-ins, right?
Yeah. Yeah. If I'm calling
these are your words.
If I'm calling up asking for, return for a prospect, I'm asking for Dominguez or somebody, because you just told me that Florial sucks and that Park can't do shit. So, yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. He's basically giving away, unless it's like some kind of reverse psychology, weird four-dimensional chess, like, let me downplay these guys we really believe in until after the trade deadline and then call them up and try and make a run in August. I don't think he's thinking that far ahead. I think he's trying to stop the bleeding right now. I mean, the Titanic is flooding. It's only a matter of time before it breaks in half. I said today, hey, if the Titanic is going down, the band kept playing. I'll keep speaking. All right. So tell me about Designated Spitters. I came across your podcast the other day, and I think it was early on, his first or second episode. And the production value is some of the best I've seen on YouTube. So kudos for that. And you guys got really good chemistry. I just thought I'd give you a chance to plug it here so that more of my viewers would check it out. Yeah, man. It's guys like you, your production is solid too. So everybody wants to, kind of, hey, he's doing well. Let me try to get the same thing. So NYY News as a whole, we've pushed forward very hard here over the last couple of months to increase what we do and make everything look very appealing. Which is something we want to do. So Designated Spitter started as me and Francis is part of the team. He's excellent. He goes to a lot of games. He knows his Yankee baseball. We got similar personalities when it comes to just the main idea of the Designated Spitters. We were coming up with names, and that's one that popped up. We said, you know why? Because I just want to tell the truth. We're just gonna say what's on our mind about the Yankees and go from there. And people like that. People enjoy that. People want to hear how the common Yankee fan thinks, and that we do get frustrated when this team blows a game. Last night was horrific, and we got our next podcast coming up here on Saturday. It'll air on Sunday, but that's all it was. It was basically us saying, we're going to have a podcast solely based around the Yankees, and we're just going to air it out. If there's good, we'll talk the good, of course, but when there's trouble in Yankee land, we're going to talk about what we feel that trouble is, and how out of the box ideas to make this club better. Maybe some opinions that people don't always agree with of trades or situational things. That basically sums it up right there. We do a video production, and it's also on all the other places you could find podcast, Apple, Spotify, and all that fun stuff. If you had a walk-up song at Yankee Stadium, what would it be? Oh my goodness. Run Through the Jungle, Creedence Clearwater Revival. That's a great song, man. That's a great song. It might be that one, or maybe one of my songs around there, maybe. But I think that'll probably be the top one that comes to mind. I think that would probably be like the hardest decision when you get to the major leagues. Like, not what kind of car do I buy with my bonus check? Right. Not where do I buy a house? What's going to be my walk-up song that defines me as a player the first time I go up to bat? You need a good one, man. You need a good one. That's true. I could imagine that conversation, when they ask you that, you're like, oh, wait a second. I didn't think about this. This is going to take some time. Hold on. Do you think there's a meaning to life? And what do you think it is? Love. That's for me, at least. I mean, if I could talk about one thing, yes, that to me is the meaning of life. When you find something, and it could be anything, it could be a person. It could be baseball. It could be anything, something that you just enjoy every single day going to. To me, that is the meaning of life. I watched a video about your health troubles, and by the way, I hope you're feeling better. Yes. You look good. You're the most in shape guy I've ever had on the podcast. Best I've ever been. Since that day happened, and I know you'll talk more about it, but I am down about 35 pounds. Wow. Yeah. My dad had some similar issues, and he lost a lot of weight, and he's telling me to quit eating the gummy worms and stuff. And I just, it's tough, man. That's my go-to. I can't drive around without having gummy worms there. I feel so you mentioned that during your experience, you kind of saw the room from above yourself, what people would describe as an out-of-body experience.
Yep.
And you just kind of went over it real quick, and I was like, holy shit. Like, if this is a real thing, and I've heard people talk about this before, but I've never actually met anybody who's experienced it. Like, was it clear? Was it like a dream state, or was it like you would see the room right now?
It was clear. So I was laying on my bed, thinking that, me and this earth were gone. That was it. 100% in my mind. If you asked me today, if I'm alive, I'm walking around, I'm feeling great. If you asked me today, was I that day, did I assume that I had any shot? No, I was gone. That was it. And in my mind, that was it. I was gone. I think my fiance feels the same way. Thankfully, today I'm here because of her. And the doctors even confirmed that, which is even more amazing. But so I could break down the whole thing. I was laying on my back. I was saying a few things and all that. And the next thing I remember is just complete darkness. And I remember my eyes finally opening, what I thought were my regular eyes at my body, but I was above where I was, about 4 feet above where I was. Mind you, I was laying on a bed, and I saw the room almost in like a panoramic view where I could see everything. But it seemed clear. I just couldn't hear nothing. I couldn't hear anything at all. And then I felt I don't know how long the time was. I know she tells me it wasn't too long. It might've been a few minutes, but I remember feeling like a fireball hit me and my skin melted for like 1 second and boom, I was up. And the cat, we just got a cat. And this is weird too, because he's never done this even to this day. The moment I was out like that, my fiance tells me the cat was screaming at the top of his lungs. Never done that ever. Like he was witnessing something or saw something in that room that terrified him. Whatever it was, he reacted in the way that he's never reacted that way since we've had him. And, now he's about to be a year old. So he's only about 6 months at that time. But to this day, the scariest moment of my life, I have a whole new aspect of life after it. Health is important. It really is. I know, trust me, I was the same guy that was like, nothing could ever bother me. I'm a boxer when I was young, broken nose, scars on my face, broken bones on my arm, my wrist. It's the inner health is the scariest thing. Mental health is terrifying. To this day, it's hard for me to watch people that struggle with mental health because it scares me. And, this is a grown man telling you what he's scared of, because I want people to also be aware of it. That is it's a serious issue. It's a real thing out there. And it's actually very, very strong in this country and everywhere else. Mental health needs to be looked at, and people need to take care of it the right way. I choose to try to handle mine behavioral. So working out more, tiring my body that way, being busy, talking to people, having conversations, things like that, just getting myself healthier, is the way that I choose to go about it. Thankfully, I haven't had to take any strong medications. I'm not a fan of them. I don't like to. But if need be, some people do. And that's been my whole experience, but it was a terrifying night. I'm just thankful to be here.
Well, we're glad we still have you on the Yankees universe side of things. Last question. You're the you're the GM for the day. What's the very first move that you make? You pick up the phone, get me so-and-so. What are you doing? What's the first thing you're doing?
Wow. And that's right now, not off season, right this moment.
Right now. You take over tomorrow. GM for a day.
I am getting Adam Frazier. I'm getting Adam Frazier on this club. And I could even go into a little more. Fans aren't probably the happiest people in the world about this, but I don't know if Cashman's the guy to do that trade. I don't know if Cashman's the guy in the offseason to make the roster constructions that need to happen for this team. They got some big decisions coming up, and the offseason, I think, is going to be a big test. You got to free up space somewhere. You got to free something up. This is a team that got 2 relief pitchers next year is going to make over $30 million together. Chapman's getting 18 and Britton's getting 14. That's a lot of money for relief pitchers. We had Mariano Rivera, who's the greatest closer of all time, go down with injury, and we found people. You know what I mean? We found Tom Gordon. We found Rafael Soriano, who took over and did well. So not saying that these guys aren't replaceable, but there's a lot on this roster that they got some big decisions to make. I love the idea of Frazier on this club. I like him as a second baseman. I think DJ LeMahieu could be a great first baseman. He has a long-term contract with this team. He's not going to be a second baseman forever. I like him at first. I think you have a lot of trade scenarios that can open up, and I'm a huge Luke Voigt fan, but I think the way the roster's constructed with Stanton really being the DH, you got a lot of tough decisions that are going to have to be made. They need lefties in this lineup, and they need guys that hit for contact.
I'm 100% with you on lefties. Just if you don't mind, one more thing.
Yeah.
Stanton, do you think there's any scenario at all, like out of this world, out of the box scenario that they could get him off this team?
Here's the only way. And it's funny because I talked about this a little yesterday. I talked to a beat writer the other day, and we were talking about going back and forth on ideas on the club and just shooting ideas out there. And one of the things he brought up was that the only way he sees Stanton ever moving is when the DH goes to the National League. And then he accepts that and is willing to actually move, because that's the other thing. Is he willing to move on from New York? But I think he's a guy that you'll have to attach a prospect to, no matter how good he is. The contract is still there. There's a lot of situations like that, but I think that's the only way right now. I mean, again, because if you're a National League team, are you saying, hey, we'll get Stan and put him in the outfield? No, no, of course not. He hasn't played there. He said he has to build himself up, whatever that means, to play the outfield. But no, I don't think there's a real realistic shot until that happens.
Pete Simonetti, appreciate it. Thanks. Check out Designated Spitters on YouTube. What's it? NYY News, Simonetti source?
Yes.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for joining.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. It helps other Yankees fans find the channel. If you really enjoyed it, check out the swag section. We've got tons of great designs to support all your favorite Yankees. And if you simply cannot get enough Yankees content, check out the podcast version of this channel, The Frieze by NYY Recaps, available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Derek. Thanks for watching.